Hello again, everyone. We are jumping into week 10, which is about knowing your values. At this point in the semester, students have explored themselves, hopefully in a deep fashion, sufficiently to know who they are, know what they desire, what their interests are, how they work, all of those factors about self-discovery. They've also started to dive into industries, the world of work a little bit more, some of the job titles that might be appealing to them. So week 10 really comes back again to know yourself, but it integrates and connects with this idea of know how you will approach your work, that you bring your values with you. There's not really an option to not bring your values with you. And so this acts as an opportunity for students to reflect upon the decisions they're making, the direction they're going, and how that's consistent or congruent with their personal values, and for them to become really more clear on what those values are and how they would work in the workplaces they're considering as well. So here we go. There's some major parts to week 10's lesson. The book review dives into chapter 5, the second half, which has to do with this idea of how do I find my calling when I'm stuck in this lousy job. Um, it also harks to the I'm unemployed or I'm staying at home. So there's some really good parts to this second half of chapter 5. The basic heresy of chapter 5 is the idea of I get to script my path to a calling in life. The more I plan, the better it will go. And so this is in that same chapter. In fact, the activities they'll be responding to coming into this week are another look at the same questions about being unemployed, being underemployed, being in a job, how to evaluate whether that's going well. So it will be a repeat. Some of them will be like, oh, I already did this. This is just another chance to look at it again, and maybe their responses have changed in the last several weeks since the first time they looked at it. So hopefully that's helpful. And so the book review, dealing with chapter 5, the lousy job idea, I've found that students have so many good examples of horrible jobs, and they love talking about them. So getting them to discuss, like, what jobs have you had that didn't go well? Why didn't they go well? You can pull themes out of that, like having a good supervisor, having good coworkers. Those are some major themes that I've seen come up. And to let them know that, having a good supervisor, having good coworkers, that's a real big factor in enjoying your work overall. Nobody works on an island. Nobody's independent completely and entirely. The people you work with are a big deal. And it connects well with our values as well. Like if you're in a horrible job, there's probably a values disconnect. And so tying that to the chapter and today's topic as well can be helpful. After the book discussion and review, hopefully it doesn't get too far down on like oh wow, working is horrible, but addressing some of those issues about what makes work bad when work is bad, and then addressing, okay, how do you make it better, which this chapter really deals with. There's the next segment of the lesson after the book review is a segment on values at work. The students have done quite a bit of work before they come to class. They've read a values in career and self-discovery handout. It's just something they do from the assignment navigator. They have the values worksheet, which will be helpful when they do the card sorting activity today. And they've done the values in action assessment before class. So all of these are that prepare to learn. So this reading, just a short reading that they do, the values in action assessment, gets them thinking about what values are important to me. They may have seen that list of their top 5 values from that assessment. So that's all priming them for coming into this discussion. There's some really great quotes that are in these next few slides. Values in careers. This proposal here is that values is one of the most important factors in career decisions, more fundamental than interests. So thinking about that here, the importance of values. This talk from President Monson is a great story. He talks about three hitchhikers, one which is trying to get to Boise, Idaho, one that's trying to get to Los Angeles, California, and one that has a sign that says anywhere. I'll go anywhere. And this video really illustrates, like, what does that mean? I'll go anywhere. Well, that's kind of what we do in our lives. If we don't choose and get really clear about what our values are, then someone else is going to decide that for us, or society is going to decide that for us. It's like holding up a sign and saying, I'll go anywhere, I'll go wherever the wind blows. And so for us to be clear on our values allows us to determine the path of our lives, the direction, and the values we want to hold. So it's an example of we really need to choose those values. President Hinckley, in his book, talked about the importance of values as well. This quote really drives that home. And then this quote is from a book called Eternal Values and Personal Growth from BYU Studies. And there's some quotes at the beginning of the outline. If you look in the outline, there's some great supporting material there. I encourage you to read through. And this is just one part of one of those quotes that talks about our lives are governed by implicit internal rules or values that color every aspect of our lives. So you can't get away from these values. They can be really silent. And so one of the ideas of this lesson is let's bring those to the forefront. Let's shine a spotlight on those values. And this card sort is a really great activity for doing that. So after laying that foundation, discussing the book, jumping into this card sort, it takes time. So be sure that you start the card sort with at least a half hour left in the class, if not a little more, so that you have some time to discuss it after you've done it. So the card sort card packs are in the closet in the advising office, and grabbing those before you go to class. There should be 35 decks in those packs. And so take those into your class, have the students use them, and please make sure that you get all of the card decks back into the pack so the next class can use those and we're not losing any of our card decks. The instructions are all laid out in these slides, which were provided by the Nodell Career Research and Testing group. So it gives the instruction of how the card sort happens. So these slides are the ones that you can show as they're sorting through the cards, putting them in these categories of how much they value them, recording which cards were in which categories, and then evaluating your top 8 values here on the left side with several careers that you're considering. So going through the card sort takes some time, but then this evaluation takes a bit more time. Whether they do this in class or whether you say, let's have you do this after class, this is what they're going to submit as the journal. So if you encourage them to, hey, finish the 8 values and the careers outside of class, that's what they're going to turn in for their journal along with a reflection. And here's an example of it all filled out and scored, knowing, okay, how will work-life balance work in any of these jobs? This one has a +3, this one has a -1. So as this person evaluated those, they could see that this position was a better fit for their values. But overall, across all 8, this column ended up being a higher score in the total. So it's a way to take your values, measure them, evaluate them, and see if that helps with your decision and thinking about your confidence moving forward with that choice. There is also in the outline, I put a video in So Instructions for Career Values Card Sort by Richard Nodell. You can watch that. It's about 3.5 minutes. You don't need to use that in class. I think explaining it using the slides will work. But if you want to have a quick run through, you can watch this video that's linked in the outline. So after the card sort, here are some questions that can lead into a discussion of those. What are your most important values? Have the student share their top 2, 3 with each other. Why are they so important to you? Giving that, here's why that's important to me, kind of defending their position in it. And then looking at the important and very important columns. Do you detect any patterns in your values? So anything that's striking out as an insight from it. So the activity, the discussion, the sharing, sometimes it happens just really naturally without really promoting it with more questions. But in case you need some more, here those are. There's some material that we created in the past to discuss values, and there's some slides here that you're welcome to use. It just has a few more thoughts, ideas, quotes to share about values. If you have more time, you can certainly use some of these. They're very helpful. But that's basically what that day is all about. So there's a book discussion, there's an introduction to values, the card sort activity and discussion. Then after class, they're going to submit that page, this page here with their 8 top values and some careers they're considering. This has room for 6. They don't have to use all 6 columns, but 3 to 5 is really an ideal number. I often share that with the class of 3 to 5 gives you a really good opportunity to make decisions. When you have 7 or more, it gets so complicated that it's hard to make decisions. So that's why this has those columns. And that's what they're going to be submitting and then responding to a few reflective questions about it. They'll also have a chance to connect their values and action results to these career value card sort results in the journal. One more thing I want to point out in the journal as well, we do have one section of the class that is virtual live, and so digital values card activity was developed for them. And this is just, it has all of the values in it, and then the students can click which of the categories that should go in, and it just filters it into that category as they go through the 54 values. And then part 2 puts their values in one side and allows them to type in careers on the other side, and it allows them to put the numbers in for evaluating. So this is there. It's not required for students in the in-person class because they're doing this sort in class, but it's there for if they wanted to do it again, it's available online and in the course. So that is what we have for week 10. It's exciting. It has some depth to it. There's some really rich discussion that can come out of this topic of values, and it really just helps people become clear on their decision when we're talking about these core values they hold. So thanks for your preparation in preparing for these conversations, and look forward to seeing you in class. Thanks.